Welcome to the panel discussion of Dravidian Professionals Forum. Today our topic is Russia-Ukraine War and the New World Order. Russia's invasion of Ukraine, initiated on February 24, 2022, is among the most significant shocks to the global order since World War II. For Russia, it is one of the most groundbreaking events post-Soviet era. Experts consider this as an event redefining world order, as Russia, on its part, would like to re-establish its already faded hegemony as against the West. Further, while Russia, being concerned about the expansion of NATO, cannot take any further risk by allowing Ukraine in its doorsteps to join NATO, which will pose. From the Russian point of view, NATO abused its exceptional position obtained after the collapse of Soviet Union. Starting from the late 1990s, Russia came up with several proposals about how to adapt the European security architecture to address the Russia's concerns, as a country never considered a potential NATO ally. All Russian ideas were consistently dismissed by Western allies without proper discussions. The assumption that security arrangements were non-negotiable was seen by the Western powers as an axiom. Russians were worried with each new state joining NATO. Putin warned about it several times, but went unheard by Ukraine. The Ukraine-Russia war is seen distinctively by its earlier allies. China, India, the former allies of Russia, see it as a stronger Russia, whereas in US, UK, and Europe, people started seeing Russia as an adversary or rival. While Russia is mainly concerned about the dominance and expansion of NATO, but not strictly about the Western-led world order, and have raised this issue in multiple forums, which was often dismissed by the West. The most remarkable result so far is that US failed to find any country beyond its official allies to join the anti-Russian coalition, even though severe humanitarian crisis engulfed Ukraine and world underwent a paradigm shift in economy, trade, and business. Even then, majority of the nations failed to support the Western countries in its action against Russia. It does not mean they support Russia for what it is doing, but they flatly reject whatever the West is prescribing. US monopoly after Cold War was too overwhelming. The lack of alternatives that did exist during the bipolar era prompted many to aspire to more diversity. Thus, the movement towards a new order and away from the hegemonic one has started and will continue. To illustrate more on this topic, today we have two great panelists who are experts on this subject: Ambassador P S Raghavan, Chairman, National Security Advisory Board, Government of India, and former Ambassador of India to Russia; Dr. Stanly Johny, who writes frequently in The Hindu and also the International Affairs editor of The Hindu. We can style this discussion in such a way that each panelist may speak for 15 minutes or 20 minutes, followed by Q&A from audience. First, I would like to invite Ambassador P S Raghavan for his opening remarks. Sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to this panel and for giving me the opportunity to speak to your audience. Actually, in your introduction, you have summarized very well the various developments since the end of the Cold War, which has perhaps led to the situation today. I would only like to actually, shall we say, bring in a difference in emphasis on the various things that you said. What is happening today is in our social media-led world, people have forgotten that an event that takes place today is actually prepared over many years in the past. And therefore, actually, when we talk about the Russia-Ukraine war, history did not begin on 24th of February 2022. It began long back. So let me just sort of outline for you what I think are the developments since the end of the Cold War, which have impacted on the world order and continue to impact on the world order. To start with, when the Cold War ended, countries were freed from the politico-military blocks in which they were bound, the Warsaw Pact and NATO, and therefore were able to reach out across this divide to various countries, other countries on the other side, which were hitherto on the other side. And the ideological barrier that the Cold War created also went away. The existential threat, military threat, was no longer felt. So what happened was a great churn, a movement around the world. Globalization led to a great mobility of ideas, of people, of money, of technologies. The technological revolution also found greater scope in expanding. India was at the forefront of the ICT technologies as well. So what it resulted in was a number of countries, small and medium, being able to express themselves in a way but being able to actually leapfrog over stages of development and acquire a certain level of economic strength, military strength, political influence in the region, and therefore the feeling that they could also contribute to a world order and that they could also try to ensure that the world order meets with their economic aspirations and their economic needs. This is one set of events that the end of the Cold War launched. The other one was the United States. You mentioned very clearly, the United States wanted to retain its hegemony as a global superpower. In fact, it became the only superpower after the end of the Cold War and wanted to ensure that this dominance continued. And this came up against eventually a rising Russia as it sought to sort of recover some of its past glory to try to increase its influence there. The Americans tried to Europe strongly against Russia in order to make sure that they shored up their position vis-a-vis Russia. On the other side, China rose as well. And the Chinese, you see, in the preoccupation with Russia, I think some of the Chinese rise got ignored or not dealt with in the manner in which the Americans should have dealt with it, because they realized it even as far back as in 2000 anyway. So the rise of China became the other element in this, the struggle for global preeminence. Another change that took place, which have not been noticed much and which now has come into prominence, is the difference in the whole West Asia. West Asia is the energy basket of the world. A change in its whole dynamics. You know, when America became a net energy exporter, what happened was that the deal of security for oil, which they'd done with the West Asian countries, because of which they remained allies of America, that loosened. And as that loosened, because America became a net exporter of energy, the West Asian countries started looking elsewhere, not being sure of American security. They reached out to Russia, they reached out to China, and that was another new global realignment, which was not much noticed, but eventually sort of has again come home to confront us today. The last point was, you see, which follows from the other three trends. These changes in the world order actually resulted in clashing political ambitions of countries. Also, globalization, the countries that promoted globalization, which was the West, themselves started feeling that globalization was not meeting their requirement. Inequalities in their own countries were creating opposition to globalization. Inequalities between the industrialized and the developing countries also. So the clash of political ambitions, the global inequalities caused by globalization, economic nationalism which rose in countries. So all of this is the scenario in which the global world order has been changing. So there hasn't been a world order, in fact. Since the post-Cold War, we are searching for a world order. And Russia-Ukraine war is only a manifestation of this. I would say that the three manifestations of this, one was Donald Trump, because Donald Trump recognized the issues in globalization that was causing problems to the American public as well and to the Western industrialized world. COVID-19 brought home to bear on us how the world had actually, while being globalized, had also become tribalized. So, and the third one is the Russia-Ukraine war, which actually shows how the Western Europeans, really the Americans and the Europeans, had not even sorted out the security architecture in their backyard. Where will they create a new world order? So today, you have, in fact, I think our former NSA, Shiv Shankar Menon, has put it very nicely. We actually, the world is unipolar in the military sense, in the sense that America is the world's strongest military power. Politically, it is more confused. Economically, it is moving fast towards a bipolar world. So you are in a mix of, and that is why, you know, our external affairs minister sometimes talks about a multipolar world with bipolar characteristics. Some people talk about a bipolar world with multipolar characteristics, which incidentally what it was during the Cold War. So we are in the midst of this. We are in the midst of trying to look for a world order and trying to look for something which is a rules-based order, which everybody accepts. Today, the rules-based order depends on my definition. If I say rules-based order, it depends on what I define it as, whichever country I am. And so it goes down the line. So that's where we are. I'll stop here, and then we can take on in the conversation.
This topic. Jashakar, you want to ask anything, or should we move to Stanley and then
Move to Stanley. I have some questions to ask to Ambassador also. Thought when Stanley comes in, after Stanley we can do that.